And we are live this morning. Welcome. So glad you're here. Thank you for joining me today. You are watching Sanctuary Live. Now, we have a great time to show up every week on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. But it's been such a great time to spend this time with you. And thank you so much for joining me today. So we've got a phenomenal show today. I want to bring on my co-host today. Todd Bow is here. There he is. I call him Unbelievable. And he, yeah, totally. AB is here with us this morning, and he says, how have you been? How would you say you've been, Todd? You've had an interesting week.
All in all, good.
So far, so good.
Everything's working out good, and I'm here.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yes. So, Todd, wouldn't you say that there's never a dull moment?
There isn't, unfortunately.
No.
Sometimes dull moments are unappreciated.
David Kelly White is with us this morning. Good morning to you, David, from Littleton, Colorado. One of my favorite places, by the way.
Yeah.
Love Colorado. Been in Littleton many times. And folks, if you're joining us today, would you sign in? Let us know where you're from, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching from. It'll let us know that. And once you leave a message there, it'll automatically appear to us. Barry is here, whom we like very, very much.
Yes.
Good morning, Sanctuary family, he says. Great to be here. Barry is from West Virginia, I believe. Is that right, Barry? Rodney is here, our good friend from Queensland in Australia. Great to have you here, Rodney. Rodney stays up a little late for the show. It's after midnight there. So, Albert, good morning to you. He says from Winnipeg, Canada. And we have people joining us again from all over the world, Todd, which is part of the fun of the show, isn't it?
It is. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Much appreciated. Yeah.
Yes. Good to have a big family like we do. Yes.
Yes. That's right.
So Barry says, good morning, Sanctuary family. Glad to be here. You know, Barry's been a good friend of the ministry, Todd, as you know.
Yes.
And great guy. We appreciate him a lot.
He and his wife have driven 8 hours to be at our sanctuary.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
And, and driven back in a short amount of time. So they make that trek. It's pretty amazing. So much appreciated. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Soundwave X7 from our YouTube listeners from Minnesota is here. Minnesota, a little chilly up there.
Yes.
You keep going up and you get Wisconsin, and it's really chilly up there. So, yeah, I think we're supposed to hit 70 today here, Todd, which would be really good.
It's I call it in Tennessee a sunny Southern California day.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Folks, we have such a great show coming up in just a few minutes. We're going to invite our guests to come on with us. And we have Daniel Tolar and Tiffany Kiser here with us today. They are awesome. They work with human trafficking. And we're going to devote the whole show to this today, Todd, because this is such an important subject that all of us need to not only be informed about, but we need to be active with it. And there are a lot of people that need to be rescued. Todd, we work with people in human trafficking here at Sanctuary. We provide food for some families that are taking in children, and especially, and then other ministries that are taking in women too. So it's something that's near and dear to our hearts as they're pulling up all day long, almost every day, picking up food, and our food ministry here has been awesome to help with some of these ministries. So I'm excited for Daniel and Tiffany to share some of those things. Folks, if you're watching us today, would you sign in and let us know where you're from? Robert's here from northwestern Pennsylvania. Beautiful country. Man, I love that area. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm walking on sunshine. Now, there's a name, Todd. I like SON, Sunshine. I love that. From Stockton, Alabama. Great friends in Alabama, by the way. And folks, we're going to be paying a lot of attention to our guests today as we have them on in just a few minutes. Daniel and Tiffany will join us, and when we do that, I really would love for you to be involved as well. Continue to let us know where you're from. We'll see it on the screen, but also, would you write in some questions that you might have too for Daniel and Tiffany? We'd like to have you involved in asking some of the questions as well. If you're joining us once again, please sign in. Let us know where you're from. And Todd, we are in Tennessee.
We are in Tennessee, yes. And I think one of the important things with this podcast today is, as we unpack things, is looking for ways that we as a family can get involved.
Yes.
Not just in our local areas, but with Rescue One, and what to watch out for, things to be aware of, and not to shy away from the category of human trafficking. We've got to lean into that as a body and as believers. And
absolutely,
I think that's so important. It can be unnerving. It can feel unnerving. And people can kind of, tend to want to walk away and not engage this. But I think if we do that more and more often, I think we'll see some results, coming forward.
Yes. And Todd, it is important to educate your whole family.
Yes.
There's a lot of children that if they only knew what was going on and had some safeguards in place,
yes,
yeah, they might be a little safer. So
yeah.
We'll ask our guests about that too.
Yeah.
AB says, has anyone watched Sound of Freedom last year? Yes, very important movie about human trafficking. And if you haven't watched Sound of Freedom, folks, please do. The whole human trafficking thing is a whole lot bigger than people realize, and a whole lot more people that are being trafficked these days than ever before. Yeah. And we need to be aware, don't we, Todd?
Yeah. And we need to understand what role we can play in helping and assisting. What does that look like? So, yeah, I think that's very important.
Well, folks, this is one of those rare times that we don't have any band interviews or anything like that. We're just going to devote the whole program to the subject of human trafficking. James is here from Indiana. Thank you for joining, James. And Dwayne is here from Branson, Missouri. I love Branson. And our good friend Tim Pope, who has been on our Sanctuary Worship Band, he used to play the drums for Ray Charles. And he's on the road right now with Tony Orlando. And so we've been to Branson many times with Tim there and watched him perform. And he's a great friend of the ministry. And Dwayne, good to have you here from Branson. We appreciate that. Jonas is here from Sanctuary, Kenya. And as you know, we've had Jonas last week on the show, showing us the progress on the new Sanctuary worship album that's being done in Kenya, and we love that. We love this. Good friend of the ministry for a whole long time. Been involved with Sanctuary for well over a decade, actually almost two, I think, at this point. But good stuff. Well, folks, enough chit chat. We want to devote as much time as we can to this important subject. We're going to bring Daniel and Tiffany here with us right after this break. Stay tuned. Hello, Metal family. So I'm excited for the next Immortal Fest. Such great bands, Such great people. I hope you're going to be one of them. I'll be there hosting both events this summer. Really excited to spend time with the bands and to spend time with you. Sunday at the first event on the 28th of July will be the Sanctuary Day. We're going to have a service. We're going to have our worship team. We're going to have some special guests. We're going to have a good time. And I hope that you plan to come, and some surprises still to come too. So both events, 1st of July, 26th to 28th, and the other the first week of September. Great bands, great time together, family time. We are metal, we are family. I hope to see you there. We are excited to have Daniel Tolar and Tiffany Kiser with us today, two of our heroes in the faith who are working with human trafficking. And I'm excited to spend some time with them, excited to hear what they have to say and to learn a bit more about this really important area we need to know about. So good morning, Daniel Tolar and Tiffany Kiser. Great to have you here.
Good morning.
And all of you know Todd on the.
Good morning.
There he is. And so, you know, I have so many questions. I almost don't know where to start. But we'll invite our sanctuary family from around the world also to ask questions. And if we can, John, let's just keep putting questions and comments up on the screen, and we'll get to whatever we can. I wonder if we could start out maybe, and Todd, you, whatever questions you have too, please throw them in the ring here. But could we talk a little bit about Rescue One, an important ministry? Whoever wants to field that question, would you?
Yeah, definitely. We can talk a lot about what we do as a ministry around the world, mainly in the U.S., based out of Tennessee, here in Nashville, and we serve in around the U.S., the Southeast Corridor region of the U.S., Thailand, the Philippines, and last year we started some operations in Ukraine as well.
Great.
My family and I, my wife and I, founded the organization. Lacey, she's not with me today. She's doing some other things, taking care of family and helping at Christian school our kids go to. But she sends her love to everybody and said, "Hey, you got it. Just go ahead. You know the material, and you know what to share on our behalf for Rescue One." So we were missionaries, started in 2006, and the process of becoming missionaries. 2008, we sold everything we had to move to Thailand, to join the team there, to do regular missions, to do church plants, to do discipleship, using English as a second language, to help get into communities, and to take in kids that were orphans, true orphans, from Laos and Thailand. While we were in Thailand to learn the language, the first few months that we were in the northern part in Chiang Mai, our oldest daughter, there was an attempted abduction to her. And we heard them screaming outside the house. They were down 2 blocks at the park with her and a friend and another missionary family. And I saw what was happening. I came out of the house. The moment that the driver saw me, they started taking off. My daughter was standing by the car. She was 9, probably 50 pounds maybe. She was standing there, pulled her friend out of the window with her foot on the vehicle, the SUV, and pulled her out, and then they drove off. Well, I got on my motorcycle and chased them out of the neighborhood and went to the guard shack and gave them the information that was what was happening. And 3 days later, the police came, the chief of police, like an entourage of 10 cars, showed up in front of the house, and they said, "Thank you for telling us the information. We arrested the couple just this morning, and in 30 minutes they had confessed to kidnapping 19 kids. And 10 of those were sold from South Africa to the Philippines, and those kids were never recovered. And 9 other children were in local brothels there in Chiang Mai. And at the time, there's many more now, but at the time, there's about 1,900 brothels there in the Chiang Mai area, in the city and around the city. And so there were thousands of kids that were exploited. And what they were looking for specifically were all expats. So black and white kids that were tourists or living there, missionary families. And that's what they were using them for. And then we learned the process that our daughter would have been, and her friend would have been one of the kids that were either sold to the groups, organized crime from South Africa to the Philippines, or maybe even in a local brothel there in Thailand. So we thought, our family, what do we do? We needed to protect our family. And then when we moved to the mission station, we finished our language time, moved to the mission station, and we thought, we'll never see trafficking again. It's a really stupid thing. We really haven't heard about it in the U.S. We didn't come prepared to do this type of ministry. Didn't even know how to identify it at the time. And then 2 kilometers behind the house that we built, that we thought we were going to live there forever in Thailand on the Lao border, there was a family-owned and operated brothel just 2 kilometers away, so 1.5 miles. For those of you that are American and don't know how to do metric. So we went to the team and said, what do? We need to make sure that we, 1, protect kids, and 2, respond to this. And they said, you can't do anything. It's a dangerous ministry. We've never been able to figure it out, and we don't know anything about it, so just don't do anything. Well, that didn't work for us. We came home for our first furlough, and then we shared what had happened to our daughter and our experience there at the mission station, just 2 kilometers away from us. And people said, well, it happens in the U.S. too. And we were like, yeah, not at the capacity that it does overseas. We were so wrong and very green and ignorant at the time. And then from that moment on, God just put a burden in our heart to just go to the one. That's really the only thing you can do, go to the one. So from then on, we raised awareness and we created action, aggressive action with sensitive engagement for those who are victimized and survivors. And we just started doing it in Thailand. We started doing it in the U.S. And then from there, we've grown.
Amazing. And you're absolutely right. I think the average American thinks that it's happening somewhere else and not necessarily here. And that's such a big deal.
Right.
Can I just tell a story real quick? And I'd like you to comment on it.
Please, please.
I used to live in Switzerland part of the time, and so I didn't have to go be, across the pond so often. And right down the street from me, less than a block, was Bella Rosa, which is a brothel, which, and the women would be out there sometimes in the front of the house and just talking. And I used to talk to them when I walked to the grocery store. And in Switzerland, it's legal. They pay taxes. They write out they report their earnings, the whole thing. It's a whole different thing. But when we went to the red light district and we went to a pub there that was full of older prostitutes, all of them were very eager to tell us about the human trafficking that was going on right there in the red light district, and took us on the streets to show us, exactly what was happening. And I'll tell you, my eyes were open so much. I knew that it existed, but I didn't understand the underbelly of the whole thing. And I realized that, these women, even though they had been prostitutes all of their lives, had a real burden for all the children that were being, victimized on the streets. It isn't just children; it's women. It's also boys too that are victimized. Do we see that kind of thing happening here as well?
Here in the U.S.?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we do. Our experience is, just like you stated, is wide ranged. We have experienced children in Thailand and the Philippines, in Laos, from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico, who were birthed into the industry.
Yes.
The purpose for their life was to sell them either at an early age or into long term. This would be their life. They would be a slave, a sex slave forever.
Yes.
And also have rescued women who are well into their 60s, and men who were. I remember one guy who was here in Clarksville, and he was a Chinese migrant. He came, and someone sent in some kind of classifieds a request for a cook or something to a restaurant. And it was actually during the NFL draft here in Nashville that, with the help of many nonprofits, Stewards Together, the FBI, TBI, Homeland Security, that this trafficking ring was identified. And there was about 18 people who were from many countries in Central America, from China, men and women. And the older man was kind of the director of the team. That's what he was forced to do. He could speak some good English. And so there was Asian, Hispanic, of descent being used at this restaurant. Men would serve and the cook in the back. The females would be the waitresses. And then at night, the younger, more attractive men and all the women during the evening time were sexed out in the evening. And so it wasn't just labor trafficking, it was also sex trafficking as well. And so we have responded to the whole gamut of those, either being born into it or forced into it, either at an early age or an older age. And there's so many entry points into this enslavement. And you mentioned the word prostitution. My wife, when she was here, she immediately would have corrected you and said, they're not prostitutes. You can't choose to be something that doesn't really exist. They are forced into it. And because we are a faith community, we understand the reality of the enslavement of sin. And so sin, the world, the perspectives that happen around the world, the worldview. Just think of P. Diddy right now, and Jeffrey Epstein, all these other things. It is ingrained in culture.
Yes.
Whether you're in Thailand or you're in Ethiopia or you're in the U.S., there is some sense of our culture allows men to be perverse. And because we are perverse, we pervert humanity. And then we have a perspective of women that is not a godly perspective. And so how can you choose something that is already perverse in the first place? So being a prostitute or prostituted one is really not an accurate title. They are enslaved, and other people, that either the system or people around them, are controlling them. And some of them, those women that you would talk about in Switzerland and others, Amsterdam, even in the ones that we go to, red light districts in Thailand and the Philippines, they would say, I chose this life, or I chose this scenario. And then we would really spend some good time with them over months, breaking down the reality of when they were young, they were abused, they were manipulated, and what Satan was doing, what the principalities that are dominating the areas of culture, society, governments, politicians.
Yes.
There is that the control of a spiritual being, a fallen angel who has created this environment to where they use other people to manipulate, abuse, and control, and people don't even realize it. That's why we need such a response, a holy response, a biblical justice response to human trafficking, not social justice.
Man, that is so good.
We are so against social justice because all it does is changes behavior. It actually doesn't change the heart of the perpetrator, the buyer, and also the one being enslaved. I love the picture that you guys have up of the girls. Producer, if you want to show that real quick. Proverbs 31, 8 and 9 talks about that we need to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves.
Yes.
So those girls, those women, those men that have the picture, the graphic shows the tape on their face, that is what their soul looks like. Not what they look like physically. They're not chained or tied to a bed. Now, there are some cases that we've had some of those, but they're not, they're hidden in plain sight. And we miss them every day because we just don't understand the reality of not only are they enslaved spiritually in bondage to sin, but just sin in nature, but the sin that people have pounded on top of them. And then not knowing Christ, not having a way out, they're just stuck in this lifestyle that they don't know how to get out. And that's why we feel like our call has been speak up for those, again, Proverbs 31:8-9, speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves. Seek out, make sure.
Absolutely.
Bring them justice because no one else is doing it.
I love that perspective. And, Daniel, I hadn't even thought about that with using the word prostitution, because you're absolutely right. They are all victims. Victims.
Yeah, that infers a decision.
Yes.
Women, I have a girl right now I just met 2 weeks ago. She was in Las Vegas. She's working with one of our partners here in Nashville. And she said, I need help. I was in Vegas. I chose this, but the more and more I got stuck in it, I realized that it was not something I chose. It was a stream that I got into that I had no way to get out. And she said, I needed a way out. And the only thing I knew to do was just to run. So,
yes.
She's afraid of her fear for her life. The people that she ran from, she's in a good, safe space, but she's always looking over her shoulder. And that's just the reality of some that we face.
Wow.
I know other questions that want to dominate all the time, but this is what we've been doing since 2011.
Great.
We have seen the needs, and we've looked around. Okay, where's the law enforcement? Where are the churches? Where are the people that know how to do some of this? How do you help respond? And everybody's like, we don't know. It's dangerous. It's scary. So we've just decided, our team members, I'm going to carry a gun. I'm going to carry a Bible, and I might have to use one of them or both of them at the same time. But we're just engaged with this. Aggressive. That's why I said aggressive action and sensitive engagement has got to be the most. I think that's what Jesus did. The woman at the well.
Yes.
He aggressively, he purposed in his heart to go to that place with her, for her, specifically for her. And the disciples didn't understand. They didn't have a clue. They said, she's that dirty Samaritan. We shouldn't even go there. He purposed in his heart to go there. And then he said, I am life. I am living water. And that's what we do on a daily basis.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Todd?
Yeah, I have a kind of an extension question on this. Daniel, thank you so much for sharing that. I love that perspective. That was amazing. Yes. And I, based on what you said, all of a sudden a plethora of more questions came flowing out of my brain. Like, where do I go with this? But I know our time is so limited, and I'd love to have much more time with you. But Tiffany, your title is Vice President of Restoration with Rescue One. What does that look like? How does that look within Rescue One? Once you guys get folks off the street, you bring it in. I guess it's kind of your department to take care of them. Am I accurate on that?
Yes. So that basically, I oversee the safe houses and all of the staff, and also I'm kind of on the front lines with doing intake calls for our hotline as well. So we can get intake calls from law enforcement, other collaborative partners in this field, or just from the survivor themselves. And once they come in and are seeking help, we give them an option of restorative care through our program or stabilization. Even if our program isn't the right fit for them, or they were trafficked, let's say right here in Tennessee, and they need to be removed moved out of Tennessee to find safe placement, we still don't stop there. We help them get to safe placement, whether it's with us or out of state at another location.
Mm.
But I would like to comment on something that Daniel had said about the prostitution. I think there is a misconception with a lot of people that not seeing women and survivors as victims. It's easy for us to say, hey, they chose this life. But once you peel back the layers, like Daniel said, and really look at what their life looked like growing up, what their story was, no child at 6 years old, no girl says, I want to be trafficked. I want to be a drug addict. I want to be a stripper. That's what I look to. So I think understanding that and having grace with people and compassion and realizing that even if you see them in trafficking or prostitution, there is trauma that started much earlier on that led them to a place where they felt like they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a voice. And so just to explain a little bit of my heart for why I'm here, God has brought me into this field probably about 10, 15 years ago. At that time, trafficking was, nobody knew what it was, including myself. But my story started early on. And the reason I'm going to tell this is because I think that with movies and seeing of what trafficking looks like in a third world country is very different sometimes than what it looks like here. And it's an epidemic here. It's number 2 to drug trafficking. So it is a huge problem. And sometimes it's happening right in our backyard and you don't even see it because you don't know what to look for, or you think that it's happening in people are being kidnapped and it's happening in a different way. So I was someone that grew up in the church at a young age. I got baptized when I was 8 years old, asked Jesus into my heart. Didn't really understand that it was about a relationship with Jesus, right? So that I lived through a lot of trauma, abuse, exploitation, all of the things. And so that led to a lifestyle of, in my early 20s, seeking love in all the wrong places, drug addiction, whatever I could do to try to numb the pain that was distorted as a child, because love was distorted love and sex was distorted in my mind at a very young age. So that led me into reckless behavior and toxic relationships in very dangerous environments. I was in a 10-year-long addiction where I felt like some of that started out of force and coercion, but then it led to, this is numbing the pain. I don't have to think about what happened to me, or I don't have the capacity to even understand what happened to me as a child, or what happened to me in my teens or in my 20s. And so that led to receiving and seeking and love that was less than what I deserved. And so it got to a point where I was trapped in relationships that there were threats put out that I could not leave. So then that just drove the drug addiction harder, to where then I started to blame myself and have shame and guilt that, I chose this, I got myself into this, I've got to get myself out of it. So that led into a journey of me being put in the hospital because I would try to withdraw on my own and wasn't successful with that. Doctors would tell me the levels of the drug I was taking is such a high synthetic form of heroin that if I try to get off of that without medical care, that my life could be in danger. But their treatment options were to replace that drug with a more addictive drug. And I knew I didn't want that, but I didn't have the skill set or the tools to get out of it either. So I remember laying on the bathroom floor, crying out to God one night and saying, Lord, I need to get out. I can't get out. if you can just deliver me from this addiction. The relationship was a separate issue that came much later of him rescuing me out of that. But if you can just deliver me from this addiction, I just want to share the gospel with others and empower women and give them hope. And the doctors had said that I was flagged by the DEA. So they were tracking how much this was right before they cracked down on the opioid epidemic. And so there were doctors just giving that out like candy. And so anyways, that night on the bathroom floor, I cried out to the Lord and said, I just need your help with this. If you can get me through this, I want to follow you. And he rescued me from that. The next 10 days were brutal, horrible, wouldn't wish it on anybody. But after that, it was like a veil lifted. And I saw Jesus for him pursuing my heart in a different way than I had ever experienced Jesus before.
Wow.
And it transformed my life. All I wanted to do was tell others, was empower others and let them know that it's nothing I did. The one true hope is Jesus. And if he did that for me, he can do that for anyone. And so that led into God opening doors, which now I know is for trafficking. And it was a beautiful process because through that, I thought, oh, I didn't even identify what I had been through. So I said, oh, no, that was my fault. There's shame, there's guilt. I just want to help tell women that it's Jesus that gets you out. But the Lord, the first couple of years of working in this line of work, the Lord was teaching me that it was a healing and redemptive moment for me. I was, for the first time in my life, receiving the fact that it wasn't my choice. There were a lot of factors involved that led me into that made me more susceptible, made me vulnerable to being groomed and being put in this situation. So then I started to identify with what I did go through, which was exploitation and abuse and addiction and all the things. So I am just so thankful that he rescued me. And I am so thankful to be working in this line of work where I can show, or I can speak the only hope, which is Jesus, and share that with others and help them find freedom in that as well.
Powerful.
Wow.
Powerful. How exciting. And you're right. You know, the answer isn't replacing one drug with another, et cetera, like we a lot of times feel like we need to do. It's the cleansing power of Jesus Christ in our lives.
Yes.
Just where we're never the same. Folks, if you're just joining us, we're having a very informative time with Daniel and Tiffany here today from Rescue One. If you have some questions, would you just write them out right below, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're watching from? Just write out your questions. We'd love to have Daniel and Tiffany share in some of those questions. And this is a really great time to do that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Daniel and Tiffany and your questions coming up next. And we're back. Folks, that was an ad for our own coffee, Headbangers Brew. As you know, the proceeds of Headbangers Brew go to this kind of thing. Go to our homeless ministry, our food ministry that goes to even some trafficking that we work with. And that's what our Headbangers Brew coffee line is all about. It's a way of fundraising for all of that too. So we appreciate you trying out the best coffee in the world. Daniel Tolar and Tiffany Kiser are with us today from Rescue One. man, an informative time. And Tiffany, I know that isn't easy to share when you've been through so many things, but isn't it exciting to see the power of God in our lives for God to transform us? And you guys get to watch that quite a bit. You get to see God in action. Would you say, Daniel?
Yes, we definitely do.
Yeah.
Some of the numbers, the ILO, International Labor Organization, says there's about 50 million people around the world trafficked. Our experience knows that those numbers are really low.
Yes.
In Philippines and in even Ukraine and in Thailand alone, and our experience from those who are migrating from China into the U.S. And then also from Central America and even South America. We know that even though it's 50 million, can somewhat be tracked as far as moving from a space to another space, which that's not trafficking. Just because you get taken from one country to another country doesn't mean you're being trafficked. That's smuggling. And that there is a distinction there. There's a difference. Once someone is bought, sold, traded, then for the purpose of labor or sex, then that's when you have trafficking. They don't have to cross lines or borders to be trafficked. So it can happen from home to home, neighborhood to neighborhood, community to community. If those things occur, then you have human trafficking. So you have to have an action, means, and a purpose. The action of obtaining a person would be your buying, manipulation, tricking, then through force, fraud, or coercion, a person for the purpose of trafficking. And there's so many between labor and sex. You've got agriculture, domestic servitude, sweatshop factories. You've got industry that sell food or flowers. Just down the street the other day, there was a Hispanic guy. I think he was Hispanic. He was selling flowers like he would be in Mexico or Thailand or the Philippines. And it was rainy. It was cold, and he was still selling those flowers. And Valentine's Day was over, so there's not many people in that market looking for flowers from the street. And I tried to have a conversation with him, and there was a car across the street paying attention to him. And of course, I called the human trafficking hotline, but I couldn't communicate with him because I don't speak his dialect of Spanish, so I didn't understand it. There's so many different ways that things are happening, things are occurring for trafficking. When children go missing, or they run away, or they get kidnapped, there is again, kidnapping is the least way that a child or a person enters into human trafficking. It is 1% to 2% around the world.
Really?
Mostly it is because you don't want law enforcement. Law enforcement are going to respond to an abduction just like the police in Thailand did when they knew that some kids were in danger of being abducted or kidnapped. All of the police department there in Chiang Mai responded. Traffickers don't want that. Traffickers don't want the attention. So what they do is they trick or lure them into trusting them, and either through a boyfriend complex or recruiters. So women, friends can be, or quote unquote friends can be recruiters for traffickers. They may be, I'm going to use the term, it's called a bottom bitch. That's the term in the U.S. and even around the world. You have her who used to be a servicer of men. Now she controls the girls in either the stable or the house. That use those terms, and so the women are typically even much more violent than the male traffickers. And now they're working together in tandem to traffic other girls, especially younger girls. So that happens a lot. So you have forced prostitution. We talked about that. Pornography. One of the reasons why the children were sent from Thailand, the expat children that were kidnapped out of Thailand, South Africa is one of the, just because of the way the laws are there, they are I think, I could be wrong, but they used to be the #1 producer of pornography around the world.
Wow.
And we also, the US is the #1 consumer of pornography. And we have analyzers on our team. We have guys that do what's called ICAC, as Internet Crimes Against Children. They analyze videos, and just by body language and other things, you can tell that there is force or coercion for those sex acts, those consented sex acts. So we see that a lot. And actually every woman that we've ever rescued, either off the street and from homeless or unhoused individuals, or law enforcement that we get, at some point in the conversation, they will say, I was forced to do some type of pornography, and either I could get my drug, Tiffany was talking about having that drug to mask the pain, to make it easier to live in that enslavement, which is, and again, traffickers, they know how to do it. They give them drugs, and they're like, oh, you don't like that one? Well, we'll find you one that you do like. And so we can control you, and you'll keep doing what we want. And so we have women, every woman that's either coming to our safe house, or women that don't, because some women don't. It's not that they want to live on the street. Here's a phrase that I think it would be good for your audience to know. The love of Jesus sends us out to do great commandment and great commission works. And when you engage someone who has never had pure love, or affection without strings, they always think that, which is one of the reasons, side note here, one of the reasons I'm not going to name an organization. There are some organizations that would say, okay, come listen to me preach to you or at you before we give you the food or the gift that we came with.
Right.
And I'm like, what? I never saw Jesus say, hey, let me preach at you first. He was teaching softly or whatever. And then they're like, hey, Jesus, by the way, they're hungry. Oh, okay. Well, let's find some food. He always responded to their needs right there. No strings attached. Love should never have strings. And so we call that the stringless love model. And we have women and men and children who, once they see that love, it scares the hell out of them.
Yes.
Or even the hell into them, because they're like, there's no way that you're just coming out of the goodness of your heart. You want something. And that is what's ingrained in most of the victims that we have. Sorry, victims. I hate to use that word. They have been victimized. They're not victims. They're surviving something. Either they're just surviving on their own. They need someone to help them, just like Tiffany said. Her survival cry was, God, come do something. And God did show up. And so we have that too. But back to that point of, they don't know what to do with the love that we give them. They're so afraid of it. I tell our team often, I'm never alone with any of our girls. I don't go on outreach by myself. I don't go to respond to law enforcement calls or whatever by myself. I always have one or two female advocates with me. And they tell me the most horrific things, because there's just, a gentleness about me. And they will just lay it out. And somewhere along the conversation, the relationship, whether it's a couple hours or a couple weeks, they'll say, okay, what do I have to do for you to stay here or to be a part of this? And I'm like, nothing. You can stay, you can leave. They're like, no, there's something that I have to do for you. And I'll always ask the question, because I've been doing this for so long, I learn now. Are you referring to something specifically to me or for me? They're like, yeah, I said, you don't owe me anything. And I don't want anything other than you. And that just wrecks their world. And some of them are like, of course, they use explicative sometimes. I don't trust that. That's not true. It's not real. You want something. I'm like, no, I just want you to get better.
Yes.
And I want you to have options. I want you to heal. This is a safe space for you. And that's why I have all these women that, like Tiffany said, she is learned experience. She has lived it. She has learned it. She's recovering from it still. Tiffany, would you say you're 100% healed?
No, of course not. But the contingencies, I love that you mentioned we are ingrained, I think, in life before even knowing Jesus is our perfect love, and that was a gift. But being ingrained in us that if we receive love or someone is helping us, there has to be a trade or an exchange. There isn't no strings attached. It doesn't look like that. So that was a hard thing for me to grapple with, and all of the women we work with, the same thing. But the beautiful point is that opens a door to, they start to ask questions after that and say, how is this? How do you have a joy if you came from this? Why are you so happy? And that opens the door to talk about Jesus. And we don't even have to, the Lord just organically opens doors for that conversation. And the most popular comment I think that women say is, I never knew that there was love and help out there for this. I never knew that this was possible.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so that's a beautiful thing that we get to be a part of.
Yes, wow. It is. Amazing. I wanted you to comment on just a couple other things that come to mind real quick. I don't think people are aware of how much is going on the dark web. How much is going on with not just human trafficking, but with child pornography, which has to do with trafficking, obviously, as well. It's been 40 years now since Bob Vernon, who was the police chief in Los Angeles 40 years ago, showed me some stuff that they were taking off the streets. And it was men having sex with babies. Mm-hmm. And the babies were dying in the pictures. And this was something that he said was becoming very popular at that time. Something unimaginable. And, you can't unsee something. And I wish I could unsee what he showed me. Although I've been thankful for it because it's given me a perspective. But those are the kind of things that continue to happen on the dark web, where people are not just getting a hold of people being trafficked, but they're getting hold of a lot of child pornography, and child pornography goes right to babies. It goes to snuff movies. It goes to all of those things that are where people are dying because of it. And yet a whole lot of Christians are still involved with supporting the industry.
Yeah.
Every time you go and you look at porn on the regular web, you're supporting an industry that's doing exactly what Tiffany and what Daniel are talking about. And the other thing that I'd like you to comment on is, in my experience, there are also children who are being, how should I say, they're being groomed for trafficking. They are being born. Their actual birth is for the intention of trafficking the child. Could you comment on that as well?
In my healing journey, I'm just going to share one little bit, and then Daniel, I'm sure, has more. In my healing journey, I didn't, first of all, identify what I went through was what it was, but that I had been being groomed at a very early age. And that was very hard for me to understand, but there was also some sort of freedom in that, from releasing shame and guilt that maybe this was something that I did. But that is very common, unfortunately.
Yeah, very sad. Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I have my wife tells me often, just be short and to the point. It's so difficult to be short to the point with that kind of question, because I have so many thoughts in my head about, first, total depravity. We're depraved by nature, yes, but we have the capacity to take that to the nth degree as humans without Christ. And so we know that humanity is broken. That's the first thing. And we just need Jesus to heal and respond. But also you have people who they don't want Jesus. They don't want to be healed. They want to, they want their allegiance in a different direction, either themselves or knowingly, an allegiance to the dark world, which is why you have the dark web.
Yes.
Because so I don't. There's two responses here. Yes, I don't think there should be regulations. God gave us a free will, and there should be people to have the free will to do things. If you want to choose to do something that's unholy or ungodly, you have the right to do that. God gave you that free will. However, there's also laws that God, natural laws, institutional laws, and church laws that forces people who know those things are wrong to respond. And if you're going to do those type of things, choose to birth children into the industry to sell them as a sex product, to create their life for the purpose of being abused and controlled, and just the most. There have been things that we have seen that is so unimaginable. Just like you said, Pastor Bob, there are consequences to that as well.
Yes.
Not only eternal consequences, but also natural consequences. And I would say we have many. There's probably many men watching this right now who would say, "Well, I could be a consequence." Absolutely, we have that. That's why we have law enforcement. And to be honest, you can't trust all law enforcement. That is the truth. And so we have, as a team, as a unit, making sure we take things into our own hands to make sure that we can find out certain things. So I have a guy on our team who can hunt anything in the dark web. I can ask him to, hey, I need you to search this out, figure this out. So for instance, I'll talk about Ukraine. While we were in Ukraine, I was sitting with one of Zelensky's top leaders who handles all logistics in Ukraine, from Poland into the interior, getting supplies and weapons and other things to the fight. And he said, okay, how tough, we're in the middle of a war right now. How tough is this thing right now? Just tell me, is this a reality for us? We went there just to help them heal with the trauma and the complex trauma of war, of all the trauma that's going on there, and to help prevent kids, because we were hearing stories of Russians, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, so hopefully not, of the enemy, let's say that, coming in and taking thousands, tens of thousands of kids, and them disappearing into the motherland, and those kids never were recovered, and they were forced into adoption, legal adoption, and also into the sex industry. We know that. That's one of the reasons why we went there, to help create the ways to prevent those things from happening. So he said, how difficult is it right now? We're in the middle of a war. There's not people out buying it right now. I said, well, I knew this question was going to happen. So 30 minutes before our conversation, because I knew I was going to meet you, I went ahead and did two things. I went ahead and did a search on what I can see just in online right now, of where I could go buy girls right now, get whatever thing I wanted, whatever my proclivity was, I could find it. And I said, here's a list of websites that are operating right now in your country. Also, last night, before we were coming here, because I knew this was going to probably be a question as well, I went ahead and had my analyst run information that's on the dark web. And I said, you can request a color child to be born for you to do whatever you want to with it, to immediate gratification or a lifetime of enslavement for you to serve whatever your needs are. And I said, we found over 1,900 websites. It was well into 2,400. And my guy said, do you need more? I said, I don't think I need more. And so I gave him the list, the document, and he said, this is happening in my country right now. I said, yes, actually it is. And to be clear, there is mafia that's coming into your country, taking advantage of your girls. And actually in Nashville, I know there are Ukrainian girls being pimped out as Russian girls in Nashville right now. I said, I have connections with law enforcement. And I said, that's happening right now. So from being born, organ trafficking, that's reality. That happens all the time coming across the border right now, across the world. That happens, especially when you can go to Mexico or other places down south of the U.S., the southern border, to go get medical tourism. It's not safe, and the organ that you're purchasing, more than likely, no, I can't say emphatically, but more than likely, was not a willing donation.
Yes.
And so you have that element as well. And so back to the total depravity. You don't have to train a man or even a woman to understand how to exploit somebody. That's our nature. Our fallen nature is to elevate me above everybody else and take what I want, my greed, my pleasure, my whatever, and I am going to get what I want at all cost. It doesn't matter what it costs other people. And so that is a reality that occurs on a consistent basis. So we know it's happening. The church is not responding appropriately. And I'm glad that the movie came out, The Sound of Freedom. There was millions and millions of dollars generated for that movie specifically.
Yes.
But I have people coming to me saying, what's next? It was good to get the awareness. What are people doing on the ground today?
Yes.
And what I would say is, you back in the day, we used to have what's called, we used to do visitation. We would go to church on Friday night or whatever night, and we would go to the community and we would knock on doors and say, Jesus loves you. What can I pray for you about?
Yes.
What church are you from? We say, it doesn't matter what church we're from. We're not here so you come to our church. We don't need more numbers. Jesus came, so he's sending us. We're compelled by his love to just come and say, hey, you're loved. Jesus loves you. We love you. We'd love to have a relationship with you. Why can't we do that in outreach? Why can't we do that in the red light districts? Why can't we do that to the homeless camps? Why can't we do that to the kids? Over 150 million children are orphans. Those kids have already experienced vulnerability, victimization, and then the church, again, could really respond to this problem by saying, we're going to adopt the kids.
Yeah.
We're not going to do porn anymore. We're not going to go to the strip clubs, not to purchase, not to participate. We're going to go to say, this is an abomination to God, and we are going to respond, like I said, aggressive action with sensitive engagement and show you that you're loved. That's exactly what Rescue One does. I
know you're saying too that if you're not part of the answer, you're part of the problem.
Absolutely
true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I wish we had more time. This has been excellent.
The biggest thing is people need to pray.
I had to say yes.
We are under so much spiritual warfare.
Yes.
Back on a daily basis. I know you guys being metalheads, I know you guys understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, folks, on your screen right now, for more information, rescueoneglobal.org. And please go there, check out this great ministry. There's an opportunity for you to donate as well. And please do that with these great people, with Daniel and Tiffany and all the folks that are involved with Rescue One. Very informative today. We'd love to have you back. Let's do a part 2 before too long.
Absolutely, we should.
Yes.
So good. Todd, we need to do that, don't we?
We do. This has been so educational. Thank you guys for taking the time to do this. And Tiffany, you and I will get together and we'll set this up again.
Sounds good. And I want some of your guys' coffee too.
All right. We've got a number of flavors. I'll send stuff over to you. So
yeah. All right. Thank you guys.
Coffee. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. Folks, thank you for watching. And please be involved with this. If you are watching porn, you are contributing to this industry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it. And so we need to make some real adjustments in our own lives. You say, well, I'm not involved with it. Well, you might be. And folks, we need to get on the other side of this. We need to become the answer instead of part of the problem. I love what Tiffany and what Daniel have had to say. And folks, we can be part of the answer. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Such a great time. We'll do part 2 before too long. And don't you forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing. Hello, Metal family. So I'm excited for the next Immortal Fest. Such great bands, such great people. I hope you're going to be one of them. I'll be there hosting both events this summer. Really excited to spend time with the bands and to spend time with you. Sunday at the first event on the 28th of July will be the Sanctuary Day. We're going to have a service. We're going to have our worship team. We're going to have some special guests. We're going to have a good time. And I hope that you plan to come, and some surprises still to come too. So both events, first July 26th through 28th, and the other the first week of September. Great bands, great time together, family time. We are metal, we are family. I hope to see you there.